with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Monday, April 17th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Professor Jon D. Erickson, Professor of Sustainability Science and Policy at the University of Vermont, author of The Progress Illusion, Reclaiming Our Future from the Fairytale of Economics. Then, Justin Allo and Matt Leichenger, both of Teamsters, one local 542 in San Diego, the other local 804 in New York, on the deadline that is passed to get the supplemental and local contracts with UPS done in anticipation of a potential strike happening at the end of July. Also on the program today, Sam Alito freezes mifepristone decision for 5 days. And folks, rest easy. Clarence Thomas has decided he will amend his financial disclosure forms to unhide the other transactions he had with a billionaire.
He's just trying to do the right thing.
The start of the Fox Dominion suit pushed till tomorrow by the judge for unknown reasons. Kevin McCarthy appropriately heads to Wall Street to discuss his debt ceiling hostage-taking plan, which includes bouncing low-income people from food stamps. Supreme Court to hear a Christian mail carrier's case for him not to work on Sundays. Faculty union reaches a tentative deal with Rutgers University. And the Republican-led lawmakers in Iowa will spend big bucks to kick people off of food stamps locally. Mass shooting in Alabama leaves 4 dead and 28 injured at a 16-year-old's birthday party. Meanwhile, a black teen shot in Kansas for knocking on the wrong door in trying to pick up his younger sister. Mike Pompeo out of the Republican primary, and Nikki Haley turns out to be really, really bad campaign fundraising math. And lastly, in a victory against democracy, Macron succeeds in raising France's retirement age despite widespread disapproval. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am here guest hosting with Emma. Emma, I've completely spaced. What was? Oh, Vigilant, right?
Yeah, I was not
here also with Bradley. I just
there.
can't remember any of what's going on here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. Want to just first say, great job to Emma and Bradley. Got rave reviews.
Wow.
Was also apparently a little busy of a week or so.
Bit, yeah.
Week and a half almost. I am fully motzed and Passovered out. I'm going to just, as the show progresses, I'm going to tell a little background about myself so people get familiar
People know
with who
who
I
you
am.
are, yeah. Right.
Yeah. But just got back from a trip with the kids. I went to London. That's in England.
Yeah.
Turns out. And was there for about 6 or 7 days. Stayed at a friend's place. We had a great time. Ran into a couple of fans of the show.
It's amazing.
On the tube and One night I went out one night to a bar.
Whoa.
Yep.
Or a pub.
A pub. Well, it was sort of like a bar.
Okay.
And a fan of the show, musician,
Yeah.
great guitarist. It was really, I was amazed.
Awesome.
And had a great time. And, occasionally would look on Twitter and see that things were getting a little out of hand at different places. But we'll get into that later in the Fun app. We've got a lot to cover today. We've got a couple of different guests. We really want to have the Teamsters on because folks have to start gearing up for what could be a massive, massive strike midway through the summer. So get ready for that. We will talk about that in a moment. In the meantime, the fact that this is even an issue at this point, we've been talking about this for over a year, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Dianne Feinstein, there was every indication possible. And I imagine it's like one of those, like everybody knows it on the Hill and all the reporters know it in Washington, D.C. Dianne Feinstein appears to be really incapable of doing her job. And
It was more than a year, right? Because it was the Amy Coney Barrett hearings where she is giving maskless hugs to Lindsey Graham and ushering her through, even though it was like one of the most consequential Supreme Court nominations for women's rights and for democracy ever.
Without a doubt. But I'm not even talking about like doing her job poorly or doing a bad. I'm just talking about it appears that she is literally incapable of doing her job. And I can assure you, I have great sympathy with that type of situation. I'm going through it right now with my own family. But the fact of the matter is, this is not about an individual. This is about millions of people getting representation in this country and the thinnest of margins in the Senate. And the one thing that the Democrats can do right now, and credit where credit's due, Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden have done a very good job of this, fill judicial seats. Every day we see the implications of having the federal judiciary stacked by Donald Trump and Leonard Leo at the Federalist Society. This is a crucial, crucial function of the Democratic Party right now. Really the only, largely, their primary function, really, in terms of lasting implications. Here is Amy Klobuchar attempting, for whatever reason, I don't know, to be diplomatic on ABC's This Week. But I think what she's saying is pretty clear. At least it is to me.
Well, I think she made the right decision to step off the Judiciary Committee. I serve on that committee, and we cannot advance judges or legislation with a missing person because of the close votes. So basically, in the next week or so, you're going to see Senator Schumer, probably sooner than later, putting forward a name, and then the Senate, as they've done in the past, can vote to put this person on unanimously. That's what happened when you had Bob Dole resigning to run for office.
But you don't think Republicans are going to try to block that?
I don't know. I sure hope not, because that is against the precedent of the Senate and how we've run things. But that's the first thing, so she did the right thing. As for the long term, many people have been out, as you know, for periods of time when they're sick, and they have come back. In this case, we are going to need her vote on the Senate floor eventually. We have things like the debt ceiling coming up. But I think what we need to do is take her at her word. She is recovering from shingles, and make sure she comes back. If this goes on month after month after month, then she's going to have to make a decision with her family and her friends about what her future holds. Because this isn't just about California. It's also about the nation. And we just can't, with this one vote margin, and expect every other person to be there every single time. So, it's going to become an issue as the months go by.
All right. First off, the Republicans are going to block her replacement on the judiciary. The Democrats will ultimately be able to get around it, but it will kill precious time in terms of where the Senate could otherwise be confirming judges. Mm-hmm. This is why she should have stepped down months and months and months ago. Everybody knew this was coming to a head. I don't even know if she has the capacity to step down at this point. She may recover from shingles, but she's not going to recover from dementia.
I mean, that was a stronger tack than even Bernie Sanders took on the Sunday talk shows yesterday, by the way. Klobuchar, she's being diplomatic there, but everyone else is trying to saying, well, it's her personal decision. I don't give a crap about her personal decision. We have to stack the judiciary with as many judges as possible because women's rights are under threat, trans rights, and more. I mean, this is not about her and her tenure. This is about the country.
It's about the country, and it's not her vote. It is California's vote, and we need that vote in the Senate. And the idea that people are going to play this game, now hopefully there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we can't see, and this is the face they want to put out there. But again, it's like I don't know if it's like a Senate, comedy.
Here's my theory too. Newsom said that he wanted, if I think she were to step down, to appoint a black woman 2 years ago. He said that to that seat. That would, in this instance, seem to be Barbara Lee. And so if she were to be the senator in the interim, that would give her a leg up in this contested race to replace her. So I think there's a lot of kind of touchiness behind the scenes because Barbara Lee is angling to be the replacement in the Senate for Feinstein. And there are other people, obviously, Adam Schiff's folks, Katie Porter's folks, who don't want that to happen for their purposes. So there's a lot of just different machinations here that we're dealing with.
The idea that this wasn't even gamed out a long time ago is ridiculous. And Klobuchar knows she's not returning to the Senate. She's not going to return to the Senate. If she's not capable of sitting on the judiciary, she's not capable of doing anything. And the sooner she resigns and is replaced, the better. Yeah. And if they got to figure out a way of making it not have implications for the upcoming election, then they should do it. But this is a failure of Chuck Schumer's because this was completely predictable, totally predictable. If somebody couldn't get Dianne Feinstein to resign 8 months ago, 9 months ago, when it was first reported that she didn't even know where she was half the time, it wasn't not going to be any easier now. And it really just it's hard to know if this is like Senate comedy here, and they're just trying to be sort of like respectful or what, or if they're in some way, God knows why, like responding to conservatives who are saying like they're throwing Dianne Feinstein under the bus. What?
Yeah, we just went through this with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, are we seriously going to make it about this
Breyer,
girl boss?
And Breyer,
but Breyer did the right thing. I mean, he was
he did it way late.
I agree.
Breyer did it way late.
But strategic resignations are something that the Democrats need to like get serious about. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Just got an IM from Andrew K. Would people be arguing that it's Feinstein's personal decision if she were a truck driver or a pilot? Of course not.
Right.
Of course not. She needs to resign. She needs to resign today. And if there's anybody around her that is in a position to do this, they need to make that happen.
How else are they getting things done? There are people making decisions for her right now, right?
I guess there's a certain amount of momentum that can happen in that situation. And nobody wants to take the fault. But what needs to happen is every single Democratic senator needs to tell that staff, you will not be held liable if you fire, if you put out a thing that she's going to resign.
And maybe like actually grease the wheels and say, we'll give you a job somewhere else. Is the staff actually, I mean, we don't, I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows? Couple words from our sponsor today before we get to the guest. Oh, this is great. I assume you've been reading this, but Sunset Lake is doing their 420 sale. They are doing 30% off all of their CBD products with the coupon code 420. Orders over $150 will get a free 20-count jar of gummies, either Sour Bears, Good Vibe gummies, or Sleep gummies.
I love those sleep gummies.
I'm also enjoying the Good Vibe gummies.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to joke
good vibes
about
all
that.
Around.
But here's the most important part: 5% of all proceeds are going to be donated to the Last Prisoner Project, This is a project that organization that deals with the direct legal intervention, direct constituent support, advocacy campaigns, policy change to get some carceral changes. And we will be matching that 5%. So 5% of their proceeds, and then whatever that figure is, we're going to match it. We've done this over the past couple of years, raised tens of thousands of dollars for the various organizations. Sunset Lake Seder is, I think I forgot to say Seder before. I'm a little bit, they're turning the classic stoner holiday into a fundraiser for the Last Prisoner Project. It is a nonprofit organization. It is dedicated to cannabis criminal justice reform, which is really in the news now, particularly like in New York State has been doing a very good job in terms of like awarding distribution to people who have, been imprisoned because of cannabis, et cetera, et cetera. Orders $150 or more will get a free jar of gummies of their choice. Use the code 420. You will get 30% off. This is a great time to stack up, store up. Mm-hmm. You get that the free jar of gummies. You get the 30% off with the coupon code 420. On my trip, I can tell you, I brought both the
Good Vibes,
nice. And the melatonin gummies with me. A couple of smokables, and it's a product I use daily. It's you were just telling me you're using some for your skin on the salve.
Right, exactly. I got it right over here on my desk.
And I'm waiting for my first bout of eczema. I'll be using the salve. Check out all their products. It's all third-party tested. A great company, lots of integrity, both in the way that they grow this stuff and what they do with their revenue. SunsetLakeSebede.com. 30% off with the coupon code 420 for 5 more days. So check it out. Also, Mother's Day is coming up. You want to give your mom the best, including the best night's sleep. This Mother's Day, give her super soft, luxurious, designer preferred bedding from Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth is great. Between the two of us, we've got sheets and duvet covers. Mm-hmm. Their best-selling bamboo sheet set is made from 100% premium viscose from bamboo. The thing that's great about this stuff, not only is it soft, it is temperature regulating.
It's good for the summer coming up.
I am so psyched.
Especially if your apartment or house not that well insulated like mine. It's good to have.
They get softer with each wash. They're the softest you will find. Cozy Earth even offers a 100-night sleep trial. You sleep on it, you wash it, you try it out. You can rinse and repeat, literally. And if you're not completely in love, just send it back for a full refund. Be sure to check out their 10-year warranty as well. And it doesn't matter whether it's their luxury sheets, their loungewear, their pajamas, or their plush bath towels. Cozy Earth makes Mother's Day extra special. So now I have not only the sheets, I've gotten a couple of pieces of loungewear. My joggers I took to England. They were fantastic just to kick around. And I also got a couple of towels and a bath mat from Cozy Earth. Yeah, I've gone all in. Cozy Earth bedding comes in now 5 colors. And also they give you a beautiful reusable canvas bag. Check it out. Great for Mother's Day. Also great for not Mother's Day. Huge Mother's Day sale going on now, though. Save up to 35% at Cozy Earth. Hurry. Mother's Day offers end soon. Go to CozyEarth.com/majority. Enter the code majority at checkout. Save up to 35%. That's CozyEarth.com/majority. As always, we'll put the links in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break. We'll be right back with Professor Jon D. Erickson. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program Professor Jon D. Erickson. He is professor of sustainability science and policy at the University of Vermont, author of The Progress Illusion, Reclaiming Our Future from the Fairytale of Economics. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with just the idea of, well, I mean, just the progress illusion, I guess. I mean, because one of the things that we've been trying to do at this show for quite some time is to make people understand that economics is really, we're just making choices. There is necessarily no economics that exists outside of different people's ideas of what the economics should be of a place. Will you talk about that progress illusion? And is it also an allusion to Freud's future of an illusion? Because there seems to be sort of like, a fairy tale quality that is being critiqued in both.
Yeah, I mean, this book is a reflection on the kind of economics that I grew up on, the kind of economics that was taught, the kind of economics that is expressed in our policy in our institutions. And it's a kind of economics that's highly individualistic, right? It's all about the person, about the individual. It's an economics built on a kind of morality of greed, right? You remember the Michael Douglas movie, Wall Street in the 80s, Greed is Good, the Gordon Gekko character, right? It's a kind of economics that's also designed to make choices at the margin. Like, we put a lot of emphasis in economics on marginal costs and marginal benefits, the next choice, right? If the next choice creates more benefits than costs, then you do it. It's like this rational actor model of economics. Yet we know that when all those small choices are added up together, they result in a future that we never would have voted for. We know that when you put all of choice on the back of the individual and kind of hope and pray that humans are rational creatures, we know that doesn't come true. These are kind of fairy tales that we perpetuate in our economics curriculum, in our business schools, in our political science programs. It's a kind of fairy tale that we have to upend and replace with an economics that, maybe comes to terms with some biophysical realities of the planet, comes to terms with who we are as humans, not this caricature of what we call in economics, believe it or not, Homo economicus, this sort of subspecies of human. So the fairy tales are many, and the progress illusion is about overturning them.
Well, how would you, I mean, are there multiple, I mean, how ideological is this? I mean, how much of our economics is a function of ideology, and how much of it is an ideology that is promulgated by people who have set up a system so that that there's an attempt to make it seem like it's just simply a rational or a pre-existing, an essential reality versus one that is coincidentally also going to put a certain class of people at the top.
Yeah, I mean, economics is built on ideology. Any brand of economics is built on ideology. The question is, what kind of economics is built for who and for what purpose? And this comes back to the sort of central notion of economic growth, the holy grail of gross domestic product. Yet we never ask growth for who, growth for what purpose, and growth for how long. The entire ideology, particularly of the mainstream, which is what I'm taking on in this book, the mainstream, especially since reflected since what we call the neoliberal turn of the late 70s, early 80s, the mainstream ideology of economics is built to sort of support the notion of trickle down. It's built to support the notion of, we don't have to ask, are there differences between necessities and luxuries? We don't ever have to ask about, redistributing income or redistributing effort. We don't have to ask, who owns the products of production and why. It's all sort of taken as a given, and therefore this kind of market fundamentalism is taken as quote unquote natural instead of something that humans design with particular purpose and particular humans in mind. Let's
start with talking about GDP. Let's talk about how we calculate this, because I'm old enough to remember that in the wake of the fall of the Soviet Union, that there seemed to be a brief moment. I feel like it was in 93 maybe, of an idea of recalculating the GDP, and then it just sort of went away. But tell us, how do we calculate the GDP? What is problematic about it?
So there's been many of these moments of rethinking GDP, of redesigning GDP. It's become kind of the holy grail of progress in society. It's calculated as price times quantity. How much stuff do we make, right, times its price. And to some extent, your material well-being, right, how much a society consumes and produces, is part of your progress, is part of your well-being, but only up to a point. And we also have to ask, what does it count and what does it miss? So, I mean, you can go back, for example, to Senator Robert Kennedy in 1968, had this famous speech about how GDP sort of counts nothing that is most important to us as fathers, as mothers, as citizens, as communities. It counts things like, wildfires and the cost to rebuild communities and homes as a good thing. It counts oil spills as a good thing. It doesn't count things like unpaid care at home. It doesn't count trade-offs between our leisure and our labor. It misses so many things, yet is held up as the kind of the one true indicator of progress of a society. And when you go through the effort, as we have in the field of ecological economics, of teasing out what is a benefit in terms of what we spend money on and what is a cost, especially regrettable costs, teasing out the distribution of the benefits and costs of a growing economy, we find, when you do the math, that the United States has been in a progress recession since the late 1970s.
All right, let's get a little more concrete with that, so that we can understand what that means. Because I mean, and like you say, just another classic example that I've always understood is that if I get robbed, somebody busts my door down in my house, and they steal all my stuff, that's going to benefit the GDP.
Great for the economy.
It's great because I got to go back out, I got to buy all this stuff again, I got to hire somebody to repair my door. But the cost to me in terms of my time, the cost for me in terms of my sense of security, the cost for me in terms of the sense of that was a family heirloom. None of that is regarded whatsoever. My overall happiness, whether this, in the time I got to take off of work, and so I don't, whatever, I miss the big meeting and I don't have the chance to do the proposal. None of that is accounted for in this. So when you say that we're in a progress recession, what does that mean? Like, what constitutes progress in your, a type of economics?
Yeah. So, I mean, how does the economy contribute to our well-being? Right. So, of course, consumption contributes to our well-being. Right. We want to be able to afford the necessities of life. We want to be able to afford a roof over our head and food on the table, and our kids to have good health care and a good life. But so much of what we spend money on, your example of getting robbed, is a regrettable expense, right? To rebuild homes after disaster is a regrettable expense. To spend money on health care as a sort of defense to having chemicals in our food system is a regrettable expense. So we should really understand not just the quantity of the economy, which is what GDP is great at calculating, but the quality of that economy. We should be able to answer the question, that next unit of growth, which is where economists love to live, at the next unit, did it create more benefits than costs? And if it didn't, and we're not counting the costs, we're only counting the benefits, then maybe we've entered an era of what my colleague and mentor Herman Daly called uneconomic growth, right? Where each new unit of growth is creating more cost than benefits. Why would any sane society continue to sort of expand an economy in a way that creates more cost than benefits? Because The benefits are concentrated into the hands of the few, and the costs are spread on everyone else, including future generations. GDP has done that really well. Other metrics have started to point to the loss of quality of life, the loss of well-being. I mean, what are we celebrating? We're the biggest economy in the world, but we have the highest poverty rate amongst rich countries. We have one of the highest suicide rates in the world. Our children are now dying more from guns than anything else. All of those things are great for a growing, expanding economy, but are they good for our well-being? Are they good for peace and prosperity?
Is there the relationship between like an expanding economy? I mean, is there a way? How would you recalculate this? In other words,
sure.
If we're looking at like a situation where, let's say a company like DuPont, they're pouring their C8 into the waters. I mean, this was a case that was widely known. They're pouring their chemical into the waters instead of like burning it like they're supposed to. They're making more money. Their revenue is up. Their shareholders get more money. They go out and spend more stuff. But of course, other people are dying of cancer, and that begins. But they've got to spend money on the cancer treatment. They've got to maybe hire somebody to help them, deal with their sickness, et cetera, et cetera. GDP just keeps going up because of all of those things. Right. But what costs would you, and how would you calculate that real world equation into an economic equation?
Sure. So the Biden administration is going down this path, actually. They have this cross-government approach where they're trying to understand the very dependence on the health of an economy on the health of the environment, right? So to really start to elucidate some of those trade-offs. Because right now, the expansion of an economy or a business enterprise or the creation of a product, all those benefits are easy to count. What did it sell for? How many jobs did it create? What taxes were paid? But the costs, right, the depletion of the environment, the pollution of the environment, those are all either ignored, right? Or the insanity of it is that when we deplete our soils, when we pollute our waters, when we spew pollutants into the atmosphere, those are largely ignored. This comes down to a kind of economics that really should be more thoughtful about the balance between private benefits and costs and public benefits and costs. And all of this is by design. Under the kind of Reagan revolution, right, there was this executive order passed, Executive Order 12291, that mandated, right, that we do economic cost-benefit analysis on all public policy. The implication of that is it's really easy to count the benefits of a growing economy and very difficult to count the costs. And so that therefore ushered in a whole system, a whole ideology that says privatize everything. Everything that matters is what's measured in the marketplace. And if we can't measure it in the marketplace, then it doesn't matter.
So is that would you call that the financialization of growth? Yes. I mean, that's where I feel like we're kind of zeroing in on is growth in sectors that benefit people more broadly and are not concentrated at the top. It is not incentivized in the same way that financialized growth is, which is built on the myth of endless growth under capitalism that really only benefits the people at the top who are hoarding the wealth that comes from any growth in that area.
Thank you for that. Yeah, all economics and all economies are an expression of a society's values. And in doing research for this book, I dug up an old quote from Margaret Thatcher, who said, "Economics are the method. The object is to change the heart and soul," right? So when we think to the kind of economics that I was indoctrinated in through the 80s and 90s, the kind of economics that we teach our young people today is meant to change the heart and soul, is meant to educate consumers, right? Not citizens. Is meant to sort of your thing about financialization, right? It's meant to say all things of value are in dollar terms. And if it's not in dollar terms, then it doesn't count. Yet I remind my students, we wrote the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Civil Rights Act, right? All of these kind of progressive hallmarks of the U.S. legal system didn't have an economic cost calculus built into them. We did those things because they were morally right to do. We did those things based on science-informed democracy. We did those things because the economy is meant to be our servant, not our master. We have flipped everything around in the last few decades.
And so is the fix a way, is it about recalculating so that we have, like, both, let's say, that we're actually accounting for all economic activity, and maybe even putting a number to, like, hey, when, Sam has to spend 2 hours, or 10 hours or 50 hours trying to get his door fixed and his, his TV back and his computer, and he lost all those photos, we're going to put a number on that. And that's going to, we're going to put that on the cost side of the ledger, and put it against the sort of like whatever the economic activity, the revenue generating side for other people. And that's going to balance it out. I mean, is that the answer?
I think it's part of the answer. I think it's a transition strategy of kind of, if you play by the current rules of the game, you're going to have to put a dollar value on things, right? And so we've done this in Vermont. We've passed into law a genuine progress indicator, where we go through and systematically take the GDP accounts for Vermont and walk through it and say, this is a benefit, this is a cost, a regrettable expense. These are things like the value of household work that aren't counted. Here's the adjustment for income distribution and wealth distribution, right? And we go through and meticulously, like a national income accountant would do, make those changes for this one metric of how Vermont asks the question, how well are we doing? Speaking of how well we're doing, my lights went off, see, because we're trying to save energy here. So that, I think that's one way to do it. But we also have to recognize that not all values, not all decisions should be weighted by cost-benefit calculus, right? That part of this reorientation of an economics that's fair and just and sustainable is about starting to reprioritize our values, right? Make the economy work for us, not the other way around. There's been so many warnings through the years. Carl Polanyi in the 1950s wrote this book called The Great Transformation, and he worried about the coming market society, right? Where the society is run by the rules designed and written by economists. And I fear that's what's happened, right? Instead of sort of debating and creating a democracy that frames and controls an economic system versus the other way around.
Well, so I'm struck by, like, the sort of the absence of, like, of just even mentioning capitalism. Like, and so what is the solution here? I mean, when we talk about, like, our values, like, I mean, frankly, I'm not sure. I don't know where we would land on our values necessarily in the context of our country, these days. But why no mention of capitalism, and why, like, where are we headed with the critique that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, capitalism is the elephant in the room, right? A capitalism system is one where the market decides on how to allocate resources, and the resources are owned by capitalists, right? By individuals. And so what we've done is we've built an economic system that forsakes all other values and other choices and just fits them into the mold of economic choice and market fundamentalism. All of the kind of adjustments through the years of economics that have tried to bring economics back into balance with other values of society. I mean, Keynes did this in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and he called it wisely managed capitalism, right? Where you really have government institutions that supersede the capitalism framework, right? The environmental movement was all about kind of reining in all of these feedback systems in the capitalistic model where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where capital has all of these costs that aren't accounted for. So whether it's, you want to call it democratic socialism or wisely managed capitalism or a new system of governance that is more bottom up than top down, this ultimately comes back to your original point is about taking power back, right? Is about who manages the economy and for what purpose. Who does the economy benefit and for how long?
So what is the goal? Is this ultimately a degrowth argument, or is this a reorient the way, I mean, frankly, in a more efficient way, our resources? I mean, we produce as a world, something like 25% more food than we need. It just doesn't go to the right places, and a lot of it's wasted. We have like you say, we're the wealthiest nation on Earth in the history of Earth. Yet we have all sorts of extreme poverty. We have homelessness. We have things that don't exist in countries that are ostensibly less wealthy than us. And that is really ultimately a function of redistribution, isn't it?
It is, but it's also pre-distribution, right? It's how do we design the system to begin with? And that's what this is about. The current economic system and the current economics that we teach was built for a different time and for a different purpose, right? It was built in the kind of early stage capitalism where growth was the mandate, right? I mean, all of the kind of macroeconomics that we teach was born out of the necessity of the Great Depression to get people back to work. And it was quantity, and don't worry about anything else until we grow the economy. 21st century is different. There's way more people, right? There's much of a bigger environmental problem. There's the climate crisis. There's biodiversity loss. There's growing inequality, right? We have to step back and say, this economics that we teach, we call it neoclassical economics that was crafted in the late 1800s. Is it fit for mission, right? Is it the kind of economics that fits the kinds of problems that we have today? So this is the book is about a reprioritization of our goals of the economy. First and foremost, it's go ahead.
Sorry. No. I thought I did not mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I'll do 1, 2, 3 real quick. First is we should be teaching our economics that ask the question, how big should the economy be, right? So this is your point, Sam, about degrowth, right? If we've grown an economy that's, especially in Western countries, that are creating more costs than benefits, what are we doing, right? So the scale of the economy is an important question for the 21st century that was ignored in the 1800s. Once we sort of figure out what the right size of an economy should be, we've built an economic system that fails unless it's growing. So we therefore have to really rethink that as well. Who gets the benefits and who gets the costs of a right-sized economy? Then we can come back to the economist's specialty of efficiency, right? That we want to create a system that is efficient and well-run and well-tuned. Economists are well-equipped to be folks that were trained like me, to be the janitors of the market, to be the plumbers of the market, to be the mechanics of the market. But we weren't trained to be the sort of social planners of everything, to be the lords of society. And I'm afraid that's where we've positioned ourselves.
But I guess where I get confused is when you talk about like the scale of the economy, or you talk about growth or not growth, these are fictionalized concepts anyways, right? I mean, like we have decided, like if I want to measure, have I grown? Has my son who's 10, has he grown in the past 3 years? The measure I can choose to measure whether he's grown is I can take a ruler and I can see how tall he is.
Yep.
The other way I could do that is just by mass, or I could do it by, how thick he is, or I could just look at his hair and decide that's how I'm going to decide his growth. Right. Or I can say, like, is he more mature? How sophisticated has his language become? We have a situation, it seems to me, that you're laying out, that we've chosen one measure of assessing growth that ostensibly is considered beneficial. And perhaps at one time it was, but it is no longer beneficial to society to measure growth in that manner. And so is the question really that whether we're looking for growth or not growth, or rather, are we looking for the idea of like just simply a different measurement, which will then implicate the values that we have chosen to assess there? So like, if I decide that I'm going to measure growth by height because we live in a society where everything is at a certain shelf level and, that's the most important thing, then that's the way I'll do it. But if it really is more about, how much hair you have or whatever it is, then we do it another way. Like I get confused between the concept that we have chosen a measure of growth that is really is sort of a fraudulent sales pitch for benefits for a specific set of people in our society versus the idea of like growth is bad.
Well, look, so back to, we don't ask the question when we do our books as a nation. We don't ask the question, growth for who, growth for what purpose, and growth for how long. So take your son, right? Is he going to grow forever, right? Does he get all the growth and none of your other kids can grow, right? Like, growth is a physical concept. And to imagine that we can infinitely grow a person, a house, a nation, a globe, infinitely in a finite planet is fairy tale thinking. Why do we continue to sort of teach that fairy tale? Because we only count the benefits and ignore the costs. Because we only care about who the benefits go to in terms of the folks who own the capital and get to make the decisions over the system, right? And we ignore the democracy that's behind the scenes that's been deprioritized. But growth is a physical concept. It has trade-offs. We don't teach that in economics. We don't teach that a global national economy has trade-offs in the social costs of growth and the ecological costs of growth. Emma, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm energized by the discussion because I felt like, earlier we did establish how so much of growth, though, is kind of bullshit, for lack of a better word. It's based on financialization.
For who and for what purpose? That's the question.
Right. But then that's not physical in any real way, right? That's just wealth hoarding. And so then I think it comes back to a question of wealth redistribution. The leftist and socialist concern about degrowth is that when we don't come at it from a anti-capitalist perspective, the brunt of degrowth is going to be felt by people at the bottom. And I mean, that's, I guess, kind of what I'd love to get your thoughts on.
Right. No, if you don't take on who owns capital and how, if you don't take on more cooperative arrangements or building a care economy or recognizing all of the other work that happens to build a well-being in society, and if you just take the current system and degrow, then the most vulnerable in society are going to get hurt. So the question is around transition. How do we orchestrate a just transition to a right-sized economy? How do we create a more nimble, smaller economy that doesn't fundamentally depend on growth? Because folks like me who are doing the math on the ecological side of things around climate change and soil loss and water pollution and the very air that we breathe are sort of recognizing that the system is going to be downsized either by disaster or by design. So the kind of economics that we would like to build in this century is an economics that downsizes and right sizes the economic system by design, that does it, that centers justice, that centers equity, that asks the kinds of questions you're asking around financialization. Because financialization makes all this kind of money from money and money from nothing. But all that money, all that spending power has an ecological expression, right? It results in airplanes and flights and spending. And then you measure that, the spending that we do as a society, against well-being metrics, against surveys like the Gallup poll, or surveys on life satisfaction, or surveys on well-being. And we recognize that we're growing like crazy and well-being has been flat or in decline, right? Or that the United States is growing in a certain style that's very privatized and very lopsided. And our metrics on poverty and on mental health and on obesity don't measure up to other kinds of models across the ocean.
I feel like we may need another hour to get to this, but I guess like the thing that I'm getting hooked, caught up on is the sort of the same sort of a point I think that Emma is making, is that if growth is just a concept, like, I mean, like, for instance, okay, you mentioned airplanes, right? We're flying all over the place. Well, what if we decided as a society in this country that we're going to heavily regulate airplanes? There's only going to be flights. There are no more hour-long flights in this country. They're only going to be, let's say, 3-hour flights. And what we're going to do is we're going to build high-speed rail, and we're going to build, more public transportation, and we're going to go back to really the sort of like the railway system we had 150 years ago or 100 years ago in this country. And we're going to develop technologies. I'm just throwing it out there, but let's say, nuclear power that is going to provide electricity for these things. I have some issues with nuclear power, but I'm just using this as an example. And as a society, we're going to essentially, flatten things. Airlines, only very limited use, more public transportation. That's going to theoretically grow the economy, right? I mean, we're going to see like this huge industry, and we're going to employ a lot more people on these railway lines, and we're going to have a lot more activity because people are going to be able to travel more, and it's going to be the travel is going to be open to a broader swath of people. Is that what you're talking about, or is that problematic in the perspective?
You're giving examples of striking a new kind of balance. You're giving examples of growing certain activities and degrowing other activities, right? You're giving an example of providing people with more choice, for example, with transportation, not less. You're giving an example. I mean, if we're imagining a society that's fit for purpose and a society that's fit with what the planet can support, we're probably looking at a decentralization of power and production, right? We're looking at a relocalization of economic systems. We're looking at systems that are still interconnected through trade, right? But not trade for plastic toys from China, trade for things that actually improve people's lives. We're looking at a kind of creating a well-being economy, right? A well-being economy that prioritizes sufficiency, that prioritizes, take the sustainable development goals, that nearly all the world's countries have agreed upon, right? That prioritizes a good life that fits within the means of the planet, right? This is the question to ask in 2023, not in 1823. The question to ask is, how do we create a good life within our means? And that's the kind of economics that we're trying to create and build. An economics that's based in biophysical reality, an economics that centers social equity and justice, an economics that just isn't just like a roll of the dice and hey, whoever wins with the most stuff dies the happiest, which just ain't true, right? You look at all the social ecological research, right? The bloated economies like the United States aren't taking care of our own people, of our own citizens. Yet we're still on this kind of treadmill, and we're all stuck in these rat races, and we're sort of running around and around the hamster wheel saying growth will solve the problems that growth creates. What happens now? What do we do next? Don't worry, growth will solve the problems that growth creates, right? Instead of asking the questions around redistribution, instead of asking the questions about ownership, instead of asking the questions about public finance versus private financialization, right? All of these questions are the context of a new economics and a new economy.
Jon D. Erickson.
You got me up on my soapbox here.
No, well, that's what we brought you here for. Jon D. Erickson, professor of sustainability, science, and policy at the University of Vermont, author of The Progress Illusion, Reclaiming Our Future from the Fairytale of Economics. Thanks so much for your time today. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Justin Allo and to Matt Leichenger. And they are both Teamsters, two different locals. We'll be right back in just a moment. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Justin Allo, Teamsters Local 542 in San Diego, and Matt Leichenger. He is the Teamsters Local 804 in New York. They are both members of TDU. We will ask you what that means. In the meantime, Bradley's going to make you a little bit bigger on the screen. We are our regular tech guy, Matt, has been in grand jury duty for an extended period of time. We'll allow the, don't worry about that. Okay, thank you, Matt. And so Matt, so Bradley will be just growing these guys a little bit as they go. But let's just start with what is TDU? Because part of what this strike ultimately could be about is two classifications that were developed after the '97 strike against UPS. So Matt, why don't you start and tell us about what TDU is, and also those two different classifications that exist.
Yeah, sure. So TDU stands for Teamsters for a Democratic Union, which is a rank and file caucus within the Teamsters Union, which actually emerged in the 1970s, essentially as an effort to fight against corruption that had existed in the union for a little bit of time. And it has continued as a powerful force in the union in terms of activating like rank and file members and maintaining a sense of rank and file leadership and organization within the union. And so the two classifications that you were referring to earlier, the 22-4 position, which was actually created in the 2018 contract, this last contract that we're currently under. And what that position is the language, which is very kind of like vague, established this combination driver position that technically is supposed to work like half-time inside the building as like a warehouse worker, and then half-time as a driver as a way to like take overtime away from regular package car drivers. But in reality, what happened was these 22-4s, Justin and I are both 22-4s, were just used in the same exact way in most of the country as regular package car drivers, except our wages are lower than regular package car drivers, and we have less protections against things like excessive overtime. And we can't have like request loads for like an 8-hour day. So it's essentially just like a cheaper and more flexible driver. And the sad thing is that this position was undemocratically forced upon the union by the old Hoffa regime. And so it's one of the issues that has emerged as a strike issue this time around, but also it's one of the issues that Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters United slate, which was endorsed by Teamsters for a Democratic Union. It's one of the issues eliminating this two-tier driver position that Teamsters United campaigned on a couple years ago when they were running for office.
Interesting. And Justin, I know you wrote a piece about strike force, and talking to, I guess, a member, a fellow member who was involved in that '97 strike. Tell us about that story and what the implications are now, because it's obviously like we're dealing with a different Teamsters today than we did just even 10 years ago.
All right. Tim Peppers is a '97 striker, and he has his fellow coworkers, Jason Mendez. He came to me with a vision, and he wanted to connect that bridge from the cross generations of the '97 and the 224. And there's the gap between us that separates us. And that's what we're essentially trying to do. And so we formed a group called Strike Force. Every Friday we have unity breakfast, 7 to 8 a.m. And it's been an awesome way to collab the younger generation and the older generation under one umbrella, and just trying to inform what's coming up. And the main objective is to the contract. So it's just rank and file members there. There's no one on the executive board. It's just, a rank and file grass movement. And yeah.
And Matt, give us a sense of with this change in the union, is there how would you characterize it broadly speaking? I mean, I know that Sean O'Brien has basically said, and we'll get to why we're talking to you on today. It's a specific deadline date and what's going to happen in the future. But the Teamsters general president, Sean O'Brien, you mentioned earlier, has said that this strike could end up being like a much bigger than the union itself. Like what has changed sort of almost ideologically or in terms of the approach of not just the union, but unionism broadly with this new regime?
Yeah. Well, let me give a little context because Sean O'Brien was actually on the bargaining committee in 2018 initially with the Hoffa leadership, but he was actually fired off of the bargaining committee because he wanted to take a very militant approach. So Hoffa actually fired him. And I think that what O'Brien's campaign and ultimately like what his leadership is really pushing for now is a shift that's taking place, I think, more broadly in the labor movement, where workers are fed up and want to go on the offensive. Hoffa's leadership, I think, was very okay, kind of just playing on the defensive, giving concessions as long as as long as he could remain in office and keep his job. But we're seeing not only in the Teamsters with like the election of O'Brien and this leadership, which is representative of a rank and file who wants to fight. We were delivering packages, delivering vaccines during the pandemic, right? Justin and I were both doing this, as were 350,000 other Teamsters. And during this time period, we were risking our safety while a lot of other people were just ordering things from home. And at the same time, inflation, as we've seen in the last 5 years, has increased at a rate that is higher than we've gotten raises. And so we've actually seen like a decline in our purchasing power as workers at the same time that our conditions have gotten worse. Meanwhile, a company like UPS has seen historic profits, $13.9 billion alone in the last year. And so there clearly is money to go around. It's just the workers at UPS have seen a decline in working conditions, decline in purchasing power, whereas UPS is shelling out billions and billions of dollars in stock buyback and dividends to shareholders. And so what O'Brien's leadership is really representing and showing not only to Teamsters, but to workers across the whole country and, hopefully the whole world, is that we are just not okay with this wealth inequality anymore. We're not okay with these companies taking money off the backs of our hard labor, especially coming out of the pandemic. And I think the movement that we're seeing in UAW as well, with the election of Sean Fain, which was supported by UAWD, which is a reform caucus that has, I think, learned a lot from TDU. We're seeing these reform movements emerge in other large unions like UAW. I believe there's a reform movement kind of emerging in UFCW as well. So in this time of intense wealth inequality, I think workers are just fed up and ready to take back what we deserve.
Justin, give us a sense of the working conditions and what people are making, and just your experience as a driver, and I guess ostensibly also a guy who's supposed to be in the warehouse too, but really more on the driving.
Dating back to 2020 or just currently?
Just, whatever strikes you. I mean, obviously, these are long-standing issues that you guys have had, and just overall, what your perspective and your experience has been.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to go back into 2020 during the pandemic. Again, people were working from home, and the economy shut down while we came into work. We made the economy run. I know I showed up, and I felt took a delay in making the pandemic a priority for the workers, like the blocks, the masks, the gloves, everything in the bathroom. Sort of say it didn't take place till later in the year. So we showed up risking our lives, and the volume just increased, and they increased our 70-hour work weeks, so we didn't get any compensation for hazard pay, anything like that. When we finished our 8, 10, 12-hour days, they made us come back to the yard, and there was loads of volume in the yard that we had to go back and fill our trucks back up with to go back out. And, we were done. And again, family members were passing away, but they still asked us to show up to work, you know, and it just was a crazy time that we won't forget. And we hope the company doesn't forget that as well. And even now, the two-tier, I think it's best described in a podcast through Teddy Ostro on Upsurge. He explains the two-tier. And a two-tier is a cancer not just to the Teamsters union, but to all unions. And so,
well, explain that, because once you open up the door to sort of like multiple classifications, that's always going to be a way that that management always tries to sort of reclassify specific, more and more workers into that less paid, worse conditions tier.
Correct. Yeah, we do the same work for unequal pay. You know, Matt touched on it that we have less protection. We don't have any protection. You know, that's one of the hardest things. They can work us out to however long they want to, and at night. You know, so we don't have any 9-to-5 rights. We don't have any 8-hour requests. Again, we're just cheaper labor for the company, and that's essentially why we want to make this 224 language be abolished. You know.
And so, Matt, today was a deadline that was set by the union many months ago, as far as I can tell, to deal with the supplemental and the local contracts. What are those? And then let's talk about where we're headed over the next May, June, 3 months, I guess.
Yeah. So the Teamster contract, there's a national master agreement which covers every worker in the bargaining unit. So like Justin and I are covered by the same national master agreement, and this covers basic things like wages. Those are like across the board. And then there are like regional and local supplements, which are like attached to each national master agreement at the end. So like I have a local 804 supplement, and this has to do with just more specific kind of language like holidays, vacations, stuff like that. Anyways, this time around, O'Brien decided to have the supplements negotiated before the national master agreement. And there was supposed to be, we were supposed to begin negotiations of the national master agreement, I believe today. But what's happened is that the company was dragging its feet through the supplemental negotiations. I wasn't on the negotiating committee, but I was hearing from our leadership and from the negotiating committee that they would not even show up to bargaining. They would just come out with ridiculous proposals trying to take more and more from us. Meanwhile, we're at the bargaining table trying to just catch up to, inflation, get things like Martin Luther King Day as a paid holiday. UPS said, what does that do for us? And right. So O'Brien said, look, if you're not gonna come to the table and negotiate in good faith, we're not even gonna start the national negotiations until you get those supplements settled. And this is significant because he has also said that we're not going to extend the deadline of the contract, which means July 31st is a hard deadline. In 2018, from what I've heard, they began negotiations in 2017, and they extended the contract and ratified the agreement in 2019. So the window now is so short that it's turning up the heat a lot. And I think we're going to see, as a result, the likelihood of a strike is much higher because UPS was dealing with HAFA and that regime in negotiations for a long time, which was buddy with the company. And I think now there's a fire that's getting lit under them.
No more management unionism at this point. And and we should say, obviously, anybody involved in negotiations knows, like from UPS's perspective, they don't want to lock in any gains on the supplemental or the local before they have to go with the other big negotiations. The more that they can keep alive in there, the more areas they have in which to chip away. And so that strategy is pretty clear. So I think you just said it, Matt. The likelihood of a strike is pretty high. Justin, give me a sense of like what you guys are doing. I mean, part of like the strike force is part of this, right? You're meeting, you're having breakfast, you're bringing food to people who are working the later shifts. You're starting to build solidarity now, and I assume you've been doing this for months, if not years, so that when it comes time to getting on the picket line and things start getting hard at one point, your level of determination and resilience is greater than the company's.
Oh yeah, the determination is definitely there. That's what our group has kind of helped build. Again, the members that came together, we had ideas. We made brochures, just for our rank and file members to every Friday for questions, anything to help inform and keep them involved for what's coming up. Matt out of 804 is a strong local. So that was an inspiration. I've been kind of studying what they've been doing up there and hopefully bringing that inspiration down here to our members and our local. And it's been growing every week. First meeting we thought was only going to be 5, 7. It was 15 almost. The next meeting, they grew to 25, then to 35. And then by the 5th meeting, we had 45 members there. Last week, we had the feeder crew come in. Feeder is our truck to trailer. They came in because they heard about what's going on. So it's kind of a buzz that's going around, but they love it. And there's no, anything political going on. The main focus on it is the contract. And that's where me and Matt have been working, partnering up. And we've been networking with other Teamsters to bring in any information to help build the momentum going forward and help our president at the table. And this past weekend, I went to the rally in Southern California, in Orange County. So the energy was epic. I think it was definitely something that we needed. And for our members to come up from San Diego to see the vibe and energy. And we got to witness Sean O'Brien speak to the members. And we had members from Local 396, Local 952, Local 63. And it was a mixture of all Teamsters. And it was just a great atmosphere for what we're going to witness. And this is only, in May, April. I hope it's going to continue. It's only going to get bigger going forward. So
do you guys have like a Discord or something like that? Like if there are members of other locals around the country, how many locals are there? And if there are members of other locals who want to get into conversations with you guys and other locals, find out what best practices are or ideas, organizing, how do they do that?
It already started. Me and Matt, he's all the way in New York. I'm in Southern California. He's actually, I met one of his boys, Teddy Ostro. Again, he's the host of the Upsurge, the podcast. Myself and Matt are on there as well. We have another Teamster out of Georgia, David Allen. He does the Roswell channel. It's educational content for all Teamsters. So Teamsters are now starting to utilize social platforms, and we're starting to network, share, subscribe those channels to each members, and we're starting to all come together slowly but surely.
And is there, do you have some type of forum where people can go and talk, or is it just you're disseminating through podcasts?
It's word to mouth and group text. The guys you hang out with at work, Matt can, they have everyone has their own culture and their local.
Right.
And like I said, I'm learning through Matt about how they do things in 804, and we've done things kind of organically down here in San Marcos. Again, we've been, the guys you hang out with, the group of 4 or 5, starting a group text. There's about 11 of us in there. So any video that comes out, we're sharing it. And next, every Friday, when it comes to Friday, we talk about those videos that we share. And then we're just utilizing every platform right now and just to be informed and involved. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. There's also things that the IBT and also TDU are doing to, reach members across the whole country. For one, O'Brien has really done, I think, a pretty incredible job of going to UPS facilities. Not just UPS facilities, but he's reaching members all over the country. I don't know when he sleeps. He's going to UPS hubs, talking to the members. We have a UPS Teamsters United or UPS Teamsters app that does weekly updates about the contract, events that are going on. And so we're definitely pushing members across the country to download that app. TDU has been hosting national Zoom calls that discuss a lot of, basic sort of economic education about why UPS has enough money to pay us. Even though when we're on the shop floor, the company's saying, oh, we're running out of volume, the competition's too intense. So it's a combination, I think, of IBT platforms, TDU platforms, and then also locally, members take matters into their own hands and start doing organizing that way as well.
All right, one last question for you, Matt. I guess it's sort of a two-parter. What can people who are not in the union do to help support you guys? And sort of like, I guess, as a subset, when you walk into, you're delivering to, I don't know, you're delivering to fast food restaurants, you're delivering to like other businesses. Are there union people there from a completely different union who are going like how much of the sort of, I guess, trans-union conversations are happening at this point? And what is the opportunity for sort of like support existing across different unions? And what can folks like us do if whether we're in another union or we're not in a union? What can we do to support?
Totally. Well, I'll give one example of something that's happening here in New York, which I think is really exciting. That can maybe be a model for people elsewhere. But an organization called DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, both in New York and nationally, is playing a very crucial role in doing solidarity for Teamsters at this time. And so in New York, we have a citywide campaign called the Union Power Campaign. And one of the parts of this campaign is one of the subcommittees is the Labor Solidarity Committee. And so, for example, we have a rally coming up on April 21st, this Friday. And so one thing that New York City DSA is doing is something as simple as just coordinating, bringing coffee to that rally, showing up, showing public support. At the same time, Jamal Bowman is going to be speaking at this rally, and he's a DSA elected. So DSA is throwing down really hard with the funds that the organization has to do things as simple as show up in numbers, bring coffee. I'm sure if we go on strike, they'll be bringing pizzas. And this isn't something that a political organization alone has to do. This is something that church groups can do. This is something that any type of group or organization can do. They can reach out to, everyone might know a Teamster. Teamsters are all across the country. So just find a way to get in touch with someone in a local Teamsters union and think about people in your community who might be able to just pitch some money in to do something as simple as buying some coffee for a rally. And there's definitely going to be cross-union support. I know in '97, Verizon showed up to the picket lines. That we have the joint councils, which are like the groups of broader Teamster locals within each like region or city. So there's going to be a lot of cross-union support for sure. But I think that example of the DSA Union Power Campaign is significant, at least in our local context.
Great. Well, Justin Allo and Matt Leichenger, we will be, I think, in touch with you over the next couple of months as that date arrives. And I think, it really does look like you guys are going on strike. And so it's good to see you guys out and gearing up for this because that's I think the best way that you guys are going to have success is that when that company feels the pressure, and because they're going to do everything they can to make you guys look like the bad guys in the situation. It's good that you guys are getting out there. Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll put links to all the things you had talked about in the podcast and YouTube descriptions.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program where we'll make fun of some people and have some fun. We'll take your phone calls. We'll take your phone calls. Read some IMs. Hey, couple things. We still have some of the limited run of the effing dork shirts.
Yep.
At shop.majorityreportradio.com. You get the effing or the full effing.
I didn't even notice that.
Mm-hmm. We have got the safe for work.
Not
and the who cares what you fellow workers feel like shirt. You get those, show some pride in being an effing dork. It's better than being an effing loser. That's what I say. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. I always remember those guys from bringing out coffee in Madison when people were striking. And, it may seem like a really small thing, but so much of the solidarity that's built on these picket lines is a function of, just what is your impression of how this is going? And, when people come and give you free coffee, or they bring you pizzas, it just gives you a sense that there's support. It buoys your spirits. So folks should start getting ready for this, because this is going to be a big, big deal. Something like, what is it? 280,000, 340,000, I think it is, Teamsters across the country. So this is going to be a big deal, this strike, and it's going to happen end of July, well, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And don't forget the AM Quickie. Want to get top stories of the day? We got Corey and Bob working the big time on this. Bob's doing great.
Yeah, Bob wrote our issue this morning. He's doing a great job. We're loving his insights.
I love that AM Quickie.
And as the union stuff gets more important, Bob does a lot of work in terms of labor and whatnot. So check that out. What is up with ESPN? I'm completely out of I barely watched any Red Sox. The Celtics started the playoffs last night.
Yeah, that's maybe the most lopsided series in the whole all of the playoffs. If Giannis actually has some time away from the Bucks, but really exciting game ones in the NBA. We'll be talking about that at length today on ESPN, but also giving our NHL playoff preview. Bradley and I are on opposing sides of the series, which is what's exciting about this. Rangers Devils for 7 games, maybe. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully the Rangers make quick work of them. But we'll be speaking about that, youtube.com/ESPN show.
And Matt Leck, as you know, on week 47 of his grand jury.
I don't know what he looks like anymore.
Is this the last week?
Yes, should be.
Should be
Friday.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, TBD.
For all we know, it ended 3 weeks.
I know. Wouldn't that have been amazing if he just made this whole thing up?
I know. It'd be hilarious if somebody's like, I ran into Matt today. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I was up at Cape Cod. I ran into Matt. Mac sitting on the beach. But Left Reckoning continues because you get out early on the grand jury. Days are short these days.
Tuesday night, so he'll be back on. You get to see him and David tomorrow night. YouTube.com/Left Reckoning.
646-257-3920. 646-257-3920. We will see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Denner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. I'm just filling in for a couple of days.
Okay.
All out of bubblegum. Terrific job, Emma and Bradley, while Sam was gone. Once again, proving the boss is unnecessary and only there to extract profit. I have a guest recommendation. Vina Dubal, professor at UC Law San Francisco. A recent study found that rideshare companies use driver data to set personalized wages, leading to the ultra-dystopian term she calls algorithmic wage discrimination.
Ooh.
I feel like we've had her on. I can't remember. A Square. Sam, welcome back. Sure, you are now tired of reading how great Emma and Bradley did steering the SSMR ship. That must have been a fat bonus you gave them. Well, not quite. Emma, your grace, even to those who are not giving it to you, never goes unnoticed.
Thank you.
And my God, those two union organizers like the Rutgers Solidarity leader Emma interviewed give us all such life. Tim from Minneapolis, will you be cutting the UPS interview? I'd love to share with folks. We will. And Caleb says, shout out to Liquid IV for keeping me hydrated enough to pass my drug test and get my promotion.
Oh, well, congrats.
I don't know if they want that as a selling tip, but maybe they want that as a selling point. Left Okie, welcome back, Sam. Today is the day for national negotiations with the Teamsters Union UPS. We're hoping after 4 months of bad faith negotiations, they will be willing to come to the table in good faith. We need every local support. It's time for UPS to pay up. Left is best. Yes, we just did an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago letter carrier, USPS has a 2-tier pay chart for craft employees as well. Barbic, gift economy idea applies negative interest rates if money is held onto, so it is detrimental to hoard. Great. All right. Let's check this out. We played earlier this clip of Amy Klobuchar saying that, if Dianne Feinstein's shingles heals, she'll be back and blah, 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 and this and that. I mean, look, maybe Dianne Feinstein has shingles or maybe she doesn't. But
I'm less concerned about the shingles.
Listen, shingles is incredibly painful.
Yes.
It's incredibly painful. But the fact of the matter is, I'm a little dubious. But even if I stipulate that she does have shingles, the fact of the matter is she's not getting better. The shingles may go away, but the problem is not the shingles. And what's really interesting, I can, Senate comedy, that's why they don't come out and say, like, she's got to go. But she does got to go. She's got to resign. But what's really strange to me is the right wing Like I saw Chuck Woolery of all people, like saying they're throwing Dianne Feinstein into the bus. It's so strange how, like, what constituency does the right have that cares about this? But here is Jim
very
Jordan.
old people getting forced out of their jobs.
I guess.
I mean, that's the crew that watches this show.
Yeah, this is also, incidentally, the party that at the beginning of COVID advocated grandma and grandpa taking one for the team. But
meaning they're going to die.
Yeah, exactly.
To save capitalism.
Exactly. So here's Jim Jordan on his please forget about the fact that I protected a predator against my students tour on with Fox and Friends. I don't think that came up, weirdly.
It also sounds to me like the Democrats are trying to cancel Senator Feinstein. I mean, I remember saying this on the House floor a couple years ago. I said the left and the cancel culture, don't think they won't just go after Republicans and conservatives. They'll come after Democrats, too. And it was interesting because at that time when in California they decided they were going to take the name off the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School. Remember this? Because of something she said like 30 years ago. So it's no longer named after her. Now they're trying to kick her out of the Senate. Now, I understand she hasn't been there much, but this is a Democrat issue. But the idea they're trying to cancel a senator, it seems to me, is maybe the main takeaway from for the Democrats.
The main takeaway.
Well, I just love the idea. Like, first off, who watching Fox and Friends is upset about Dianne Feinstein getting canceled? What is like canceled? It just shows the complete vacuousness of that term.
Yeah.
It's a joke. But yeah, she should resign because she can't do her job because she's too. It's not just a question that she's too old. I mean, I guess it's conceivable. I know people in their mid-80s who are out, cutting trees down and, farming. Just as sharp as they were 10 years ago. But she is not. And we know this. There's been reporting to this effect for 6 to 8 months. And I can tell you, 6 to 8 months with the dementia that she had at that time can be a very, very long time.
Yeah, maybe this is like an indication that Republicans don't think that they have the 10 that can filibuster any replacement for Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee.
I think that the all you need is probably like 51 votes because it's a rules vote in the Senate. They'll get around this. They know that I don't understand what they're just trying to provide cover for Tom Cotton to inhibit the ability of the Democrats to replace her on the judiciary. And so what has to happen, regardless, someone in Dianne Feinstein's family or whoever it is that is, writing the checks or doing whatever in that house has to say, Mom, it's time, or Sis, it's time, or, Grandma, it's time, or Boss, it's time. I mean, jeez.
Yeah. So, but the point is that the Republicans would prefer that she's out indefinitely.
Of course.
So that, because they don't feel that they have the institutional power to block any replacement. So that's why they're going with let's cancel culture. We'll just go with that.
Gives me something to talk about if I go on Fox and Friends.
There you go.
I also like how he also at the end of it sort of was like, well, it's a Democrat problem. And he was almost like, why am I talking about this?
Yeah.
What is the value here?
It's very, very lazy.
Speaking of Republican leadership, the problems the Republicans have been having for almost months now, in terms of like what they're going to extort or attempt to extort from the country to not crash the economy and have the United States default for the first time on its debt in its history. They've been really flailing around looking for something ever since Donald Trump ordered them not to touch Social Security and Medicare. And now they're still going to try and find ways of cutting it, but it's just not going to happen so explicitly in the debt ceiling. So Kevin McCarthy goes to Wall Street and says, I've got an idea. Let's hurt poor people.
Our proposal will also restore work requirements that ensure able-bodied adults without dependents earn a paycheck and learn new skills. That will grow our economy and help the supply chain. Right now, there are more job openings than people who are looking for jobs. You know why? It's in part because the Biden administration weakened work requirements. Incentives matter. And the incentives today are out of whack. It's time to get Americans back to work.
First of all, the labor participation rate is back up to where it was in pre-COVID levels.
Yeah.
I mean, putting that aside, we know the job requirements do not incentivize people to go and get a job. There's no jobs for them that they qualify for. This is just absurd. It has been a failure every time it's been attempted.
And to say this too within the context of the Fed literally disciplining labor as we speak because they want to curb inflation, which we now realize is not because of overemployment, it's because of corporate price gouging and the remaining supply chain issues. And you headline this, the Iowa food stamp story. Iowa and other Republican states are going to spend millions of dollars in administrative costs to kick families off of food stamps with these work requirements. The fiscal responsibility Republicans are going to pay money. I mean, just like they didn't take the free money for Medicaid expansion, but now they're going to pay money to get people off of government programs because it's all about how much leverage can you have over somebody, including hunger. I want to leverage hunger to make sure that you take lower wages.
And we're literally talking about, in terms of like these food stamp payouts for someone without any dependents, we're talking tens of dollars.
Yeah.
Tens of dollars. Like, I'm not going to work because I'm getting $23 a week to buy food. I mean, this stuff is insane.
It's a little on the nose, too, that he says it at the literal stock exchange.
Yeah.
And Politico reported this morning or last night that with an article titled "McCarthy's Pitch to Shrink Food Aid, Drawing Skepticism from Fellow Republicans." So he also wants to do this to SNAP as well, obviously, in terms of like the other benefits that he can sort of curtail. And he's not even doing this, I would say, with like a mandate to do so from his own caucus. Like, I think there are probably 30 to 40 vulnerable sort of like frontline swing seat Republicans that want nothing to do with
the House.
Yeah, with this type of
I would
plan.
guess.
I don't think a lot of, like, for example, freshman Republicans in New York State or some of the, I don't think they're going to want to vote for a bill that's like, yeah, we're going to vote to take away your social programs and cut your food stamps and make you work to get Medicare.
And maybe if that was in a vacuum, Bradley, they would be okay with it, but it's within the context of a debt ceiling fight.
Right.
And no regular person's like, let's crash the economy over 20 extra bucks for SNAP.
It's all that, and also we might just default on our debt and shut down the government.
It's just they've got nothing. That's why Trump is so valuable right now in this current moment. I mean, like what he's doing with you were out, but he came out with another ad about DeSantis and Social Security and Medicare.
Without a doubt.
I'm loving it.
Without a doubt. We've been saying that. Like, I mean, look,
we
saw them at we saw this at the State of the Union. I mean, the die has been cast. They have run out of stuff to talk about, without a doubt, and they basically just revert to their safe space. You know, he's there. He's giving that speech for donors, essentially. Is really what it's about. Like, we're playing our role. We're going to attack poor people to the extent that we can, you know, without the ability to attack Social Security and Medicare, because Donald said that we couldn't do that. And then he'll head out to some, I don't know, county fair in, North Dakota and talk about how they're going to, stop the creeping trans ideology or whatever it is. I mean, that's basically the formula there.
These real
they
political
go to their
winners.
Safe space of attacking anybody with any type of like marginal political power in the country. All right, let's lighten things up a little bit, shall we?
Yes.
Should we go Trump at the NRA or let's do Davram?
Okay.
This is Good Liars. Look, this entire video's with the Good Liars. You go If you're not following them on Twitter right now, it's literally the only decent thing left on Twitter, I think, is watching their videos. But you remember last year, what is it? Is it Jason is the other one? Yes, Jason Selvig, went up and spoke at the NRA convention. And this time Davram does it. And the beauty is like they slow walk this one. And it's really amazing to see like the slow realization, hey, wait a second. We've been saying this stuff, but when he says it, it sounds weird.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank the NRA, and in particular Mr. LaPierre, for standing strong in the face of the constant assaults on gun owners by the gun control nuts. We, the gun owners, are the victims. We are victims of media bias and of legislators with their gun control drumbeat, and after every mass shooting, we live in fear. When will it happen again? Each time the national dialogue turns to rapid-fire stats and figures in an effort to discredit us, gun owners, they say that this country has over 400 million guns, more than any country in the world, and they say that's why there are more mass shootings than anywhere else in the world. But that's just coincidence. You know that famous saying, there are coincidences. The millions of gun owners across the nation are under attack. We are the real victims, but Wayne LaPierre and the NRA take the bullet for us. Thank you. And thank you. Without the protection of the NRA, what would happen to us? We would be left for dead. I mean, not, literally, but you know what I mean, right? I worry that one day my children might be the victims of not having as many guns as they want.
Somebody realized.
Our forefathers may have had flaws. It's true. Obviously, there was slavery. Women didn't have the right to vote. But on the Second Amendment, they got it perfectly. So in closing, I want to say thank you to Mr. LaPierre and the NRA for providing gun owners this safe space where we can say to the world that gun owners are the real victims. Gun owners are the real victims. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. LaPierre. Thank you to the NRA. Gun owners are the victims.
They're still not sure at the end.
Yeah. What just... But we are the real victims. Why does it sound so gross when we hear it?
That's so
Those
good.
guys are fantastic.
How's LaPierre survived? Hasn't the NRA been in real financial precarity for quite a long period of time?
Well, you got to go with what got you to the party, I guess. Man, they're still getting everybody to speak. They get Trump and DeSantis to speak there. Let's just do this Glenn Beck one, and then we'll maybe take a call or to read some IMs. It is amazing the lengths that the right will go to demonize trans people, and Glenn Beck twists himself in such an incredible pretzel here to justify what are we at now? 21 states that have either pursuing legislation or passed legislation to prevent parents and doctors from providing health care in a way that they perceive to be needed for their patients. And Glenn Beck basically wants you to believe, well, when doctors are allowed to make decisions with their patients directly, remember, it was, how many years are we removed from to allow the government to get between the doctor and the patient? How dare you? Well, now Glenn Beck is basically saying it wasn't really the Nazis. It was the doctor Nazis.
What new evidence do we have that we should
mutilate the bodies of children. Tell me the case. This in a reasonable society, this would be debated a long time before it was ever even introduced. If it was introduced, it would get the people of the country to look at it and go, wait a minute.
Pause it. I just remember the 80s, the extended national debate on whether women and girls, frankly, could get breast augmentation or breast reduction. I remember that huge debate. Nose jobs.
Yeah.
Huge debate. National debate.
You're mutilating the face of a 16-year-old girl because she says that she wants, to get around.
We would have huge debates about it, national debate. I can't remember quite how it was resolved. But
and I also will say that the medical knowledge being settled about abortion did not stop Glenn Beck and other right-wingers from attacking that notion of care, which is kind of the same thing here that's happening in the gender-affirming care debate.
And of course, I also remember the great circumcision debates that was happening nationally for decades and decades, where we all decided that we were going to decide whether people get circumcised or not as a society. All right, but just continue here.
Was introduced, it would get the people of the country to look at it and go, wait a minute. Make your case. Show me the evidence. That's what's happening overseas. It's not happening here because they're shutting everybody up. Now, don't talk to me about book burners when you are doing everything you can to shout people down and make them afraid to speak. You won't even get to the books. You don't have to. You just get to all the authors. You just get to everybody who can write a book or even make a decent argument against it, and you frighten them. Here's why this is bothering me so much.
Pause it for 1 second. So in other words, what he's saying is like, it's impossible to hear any critique of trans people in like newspapers like the New York Times, which of course has featured article after article after article, all opinion, incidentally, attacking trans people. Or let's say the highest rated cable news show in the country, the highest rated cable news network in the country, the highest trafficked on Facebook, on YouTube, on every single platform that exists, where you have renowned people attacking trans people. And like I said, almost 24 states where there has been explicit anti-trans legislation passed or in the process of being passed. That's how repressive our society has become to people who are attacking trans people. That's the point he's making. I just want to make that explicit.
Yeah. And we'll let him finish, but it is just amazing that he brings up book burning in this context.
A decent argument against it, and you frighten them. Here's why this is bothering me so much. It wasn't the Nazis that were killing people, per se. It was the doctors that were Nazis that were killing people. Joseph Mengele, he was operating within...
I want to stop this and go back to when he starts to get into this, because this is something that literally should have this guy committed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is where somebody should step in and go, I'm going to need power of attorney. This is such an insane, ahistorical, dangerous rant. It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that it was only Nazi doctors who killed 6 million Jews in concentration camps is I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not qualified to make this, but I feel pretty confident. Insane.
Yep.
Is insane. But he's going to go full on about this and mention one doctor, Mengele, who would experiment on Jews because he perceived them as subhuman. As if like, it's just like, we just set up the concentration camp because we wanted to provide doctors' offices. This is insane.
And just to bring up the point about Nazis and book burning, in terms of the ahistorical nature of it, we have talked about how in Berlin there was a pioneering gender-affirming care clinic where Nazis literally went in, shut it down, and burned books. Burned the records that they had there for the surgeries that they were doing and trying out with some of the trans people in Germany at the time. So this literally happened, and it was targeting medical care. But like, this is an anti-intellectualism point from Glenn Beck, where they can go after doctors for abortion, Tiller the baby killer, doctors for trans-affirming care, and then set up under the guise of like a straw man that no one's dealt with these concepts before when doctors have been for decades.
And also, it dovetails nicely with their attack. I mean, their anti-COVID rhetoric.
Right, that too.
This is all part of, attacking science has always been a primary objective of conservatives. And attacking history, whether it's, this garbage or the lost cause in terms of like, oh, the Civil War was not fought about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It was economics. All right, go.
It wasn't the Nazis that were killing people, per se. It was the doctors that were Nazis that were killing people. Joseph Mengele, he was operating within standard framework of ethics for doctors in Germany at the time. They believed things that just were not true. And so they would do whatever it is they wanted to do. The people that were, in his part of Auschwitz, they were terrified because they knew everything he did, it didn't matter. He didn't have to ask for any permission or anything. Whatever he did to them, he could do. If he just wanted to kill them just for fun, he could kill them. And all of this started out of compassion.
Okay. Yeah, we're in a state of shock. That's why it took us a second. Let's just take this in order. The idea that what Mengele did was in standard ethics of doctors in Germany. This is such a lack of understanding of the history of exactly what took place in Germany, but everything that was done, the genocide that was committed, the millions upon millions of people who were killed, was all legal. Was all there were laws that made it legal. The idea that it was standard ethics for doctors is just a bizarre sort of, I don't even know how to put it into context. Mengele was experimenting on people. The idea that people in his part of Auschwitz were afraid. I don't know if he should have put up images of people in Auschwitz. Starving, walking skeletons. Not just in Auschwitz, but Treblinka, in all of the concentration camps. The idea that in this one part of Mengele's Auschwitz, people were afraid. This is just insane. Honestly, anybody working on that show, anybody standing within 20 feet of this guy, the idea that they could just allow this to go, that he is going to twist the Holocaust into being a function of doctors who started out of compassion.
Yeah, that's the part that is...
This is insanity.
It's Holocaust denialism. That's what this is. I mean, you're pretending that this was a twisting of the doctor's code of ethics where they started from a place of compassion with the genocide. I mean, that is not how this went down. This was a political movement, a right-wing fascist political movement that mobilized millions of people into committing genocide. That's what happened here.
It is. I just find that stunning that guy is able to have those words come out of his mouth, and there isn't anybody within his eyesight who's just not going like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, cut the mic. This is also like the other people who should be ashamed in this are anybody who a few years ago chose to be a part of laundering
Samantha Bee.
laundering like
yeah.
a reputational cleanup
Totally.
for Glenn Beck. That New York Times interview he did I think in the Times
New York Magazine.
or New York Magazine,
Yeah.
where it was like Glenn Beck is sorry for all that.
Yeah.
The headline.
Oh my God.
Like if it wasn't as transparent that was just a fake campaign to get him to be a little bit more respectable, I think he feels pretty comfortable just going back to the well now. I think that served its purpose.
Yeah. Oh, and then but this is not going to stop here. They're not going to rest until a gender affirming care doctor is killed.
Without a doubt. Number 64625-73920. We're probably going to take maybe a couple of calls, but not many. We don't have that much time. We had a lot of guests on, but we'll do that tomorrow. What should we do? It's all insane. Just a sheer insanity going on here.
Shapiro, maybe.
This is just insane. Has Ben Shapiro ever left the country? It's just amazing to me. Here's Ben Shapiro. It's like I don't even know how like these people wake up in the morning and here's Ben Shapiro. He's upset about the casting choices of Netflix.
Oh.
And
do you think that he even really cares? Like, I think that there's a level of Ben Shapiro who says, like, I have to do this for the audience. I kind of resent this.
About someone playing.
Well, of all people, like, I mean, it's like
this is for the base. So he has to work himself into this. He thinks he's above it, but this is who your audience is.
Yes. And what is stunning about this too is like, how dry must the well be to be complaining about what he's about to complain about in terms of like the racist well that they're swimming in.
The notion that Cleopatra was black is silly. I mean, again, you're allowed to do this in Hollywood because, of course, the only thing that matters is our weird parochially American perception of what race matters. It's super, super strange. By the way, we actually have sculptures of Cleopatra. It's not as though there's like nothing to indicate what Cleopatra looked like. There's a Roman sculpture of Cleopatra from like the mid-1st century.
First of all, it's the left that's being parochial, not the guy that can't go on a map and see which continent is Egypt on. Ben. Facts over feelings. Ben Shapiro doesn't understand that,
it's
like,
in the north of
Africa. Good job, Bradley. He doesn't seem to understand that, his own fanciful notions of what Cleopatra looked like. Maybe he saw Elizabeth Taylor at one point play her. That's informed by your culture. That's informed by what you were fed as a child, as opposed to the geographic location of where she's literally from.
The idea like that it is, I love the idea like the Romans did a statue and told us what she looked like.
Game over. Famously, all of those portrayals of monarchs and emperors, like they didn't fudge that in any way to make those guys look a little bit more handsome or they probably made Cleopatra look a little bit more like the other Romans because it was a Roman statue.
All right, let's go.
We actually have sculptures of Cleopatra. It's not as though there's like nothing to indicate what Cleopatra looked like. There's a Roman sculpture of Cleopatra from like the mid-1st century, around the time of her visits to Rome. And she looks Greek because she was probably Greek. It was amazing. The entire Hollywood crowd went totally nuts when it turned out they were trying to cast Gal Gadot as Cleopatra. Gal Gadot undoubtedly looked a lot more like Cleopatra than anybody who's being cast in this particular production. Now, again, you can cast however you want, but I've noticed a certain pattern in Hollywood, which is that people who clearly are not black are now being cast as black. But if you ever did the reverse, then it would be, then no way, right? That would be racism of the highest order. In fact, you'll recall that there's this Shonda Rhimes show, Bridgerton, in which is Queen Victoria, is it? I don't watch Bridgerton because I'm a dude and I have testicles. So Bridgerton is a show.
I'm gonna need a link for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need some substantiation.
Did he prove it?
It's so interesting, like that he needs to remind everyone that he has testicles. But first off, the idea that yes, casting someone who we know explicitly was black, casting them as a white person would be more offensive than the reverse, is because of decades of denying black people roles in Hollywood, decades upon decades of this.
It's also historical fiction. It's meant Bridgerton. He doesn't know anything about it, but he has very strong opinions about this show, which like seeks to cross race and gender, I guess, in terms of like bringing that kind of old school British style, like Pride and Prejudice-esque romance with different faces. It's historical fiction. That's why they are black. It's not meant to be historically accurate.
And, whether it's the case that Cleopatra was Greek or had Greek ancestry, we only know what she looks like from these statues made by Romans, who are also, incidentally, not Greek.
Yeah.
And their depictions of who Cleopatra were, it's an interpretation. It is a sense of like the society. I mean, it's not a big deal to Ben Shapiro, but it's a big enough deal to talk about and use it as an example of further white, like reverse racism.
Yeah,
I mean, has
he ever been in a Korean church? They sometimes have Jesus depicted as Korean, but like for the most part, Jesus has been depicted as white and blonde and blue-eyed, which we know is not what he would have looked like. It's because these older institutions made these mythological, almost historical figures into visions of what they looked like. I mean, and he knows this. He's playing dumb for his audience.
But also, even if someone mentions, I just saw this in the YouTube chat, but even if she were, I think she might have been ethnically Macedonian and then it was in Egypt, like, even if she was Greek, Macedonian, whatever, the idea that, like, that means she's white, or, like white presenting, like if she was Greek and Macedonian, she's not going to look like J.D. Vance. Like,
No.
Yeah, exactly.
they have darker pigments, too.
Show, Bridgerton, in which is Queen Victoria, is it? I don't watch Bridgerton because I'm a dude and I have testicles. So Bridgerton is a show for women and also a racially strange show in which a bunch of white people are cast as black people, sort of like Hamilton. A bunch of white people are cast as people of color, and all the rest. And again, if we're just going to do race neutral casting on everything, I'm here for it. Fine, all right, that's cool. But that also means that Ryan Gosling needs to be up for Martin Luther King, right? It also means that we're going to need Christian Bale as like Booker T. Washington, like either you do it or you don't, okay? You don't get to make up. In this particular case, it's even worse because they're actively trying to claim a thing that was not true for purposes, presumably, of suggesting that there was a whitewashing of Cleopatra's history. That there was an attempt to whitewash Cleopatra by turning her into a white lady, but actually, she was probably a black lady.
Again, the idea of like, I don't think we're going to see, people portraying Jimmy Carter. Like Denzel Washington's not going to play Jimmy Carter. I don't think that's going to happen. The idea that it is such an abomination, like by his standards, there should be only a Macedonian actress should play Cleopatra. It's just absurd. Do you think the same height that the actress who has played Cleopatra has ever been the same height as Cleopatra was? I mean, honestly, like, this is just insane.
Yeah.
But they've got to hit their quota of racist stuff on the show on a daily basis. And the best they can do is like, let's get the Cleopatra thing. Let's just do that. Is there another show that I can also show how masculine I am to cite and remind everybody I have testicles?
That he doesn't watch, but he has strong opinions about it. I mean, sounds like you might have a good sense of what's on there, Ben.
It's just also I said this I think last week too, but it's like for people who seem to resent and hate like Hollywood elites and like
oh my
and
god,
like left wing pop culture. I mean, they're obsessed with it. They can't
This
stop
is, no.
talking about it.
This is, I mean, I don't even know that it's really that repressed. His desire to have been a Hollywood writer and to be in Hollywood, it's the same exact disease that Andrew Breitbart had. He hated the fact that all the celebrities that he so desperately wanted to be chummy with thought he was a moron. Hated it. Shapiro's the exact same way. So desperate. He would give this up in a heartbeat to be like a, considered funny or a writer in on a sitcom. Like it would happen so fast, it would be blinding.
Steve Bannon was in the movie industry too.
Well, Steve Bannon was just a
I know, but
a money producer who had luckily lent some money to Castle Rock and got part of the Seinfeld stuff.
But Michael Knowles, like Ruben, like
Yes.
they're all like a bunch of them are like kind of sort of reformed. Like
Well, no, they
actors,
didn't go anywhere. I mean, but Shapiro's even worse because he desperately wants to go into that.
Yeah.
I mean, his desire for celebrity. And I got to say something, if you got to remind people that you have testicles, that you're a man, maybe you're feeling a little bit like, I don't know, misunderstood. It's literally like, now, if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to hop into my red Corvette.
It's very long.
All right, let's go to the phones. Calling from a 760 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Diego.
I'm sorry. Say again.
This is Brendan calling from San Diego.
Brendan from San Diego. What's on your mind?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention really just how ridiculous and disgusting it is how often these right-wing commentators seem to distort history, particularly around the Holocaust, for their own ends. And honestly, when they try to defend people from the past, like our founding fathers, who were had a lot of disgusting personalities in there, but honestly were maybe not even as evil as these commentators, because, for example, Manifest Destiny, when I'm sorry if it's noisy, by the way, but Manifest Destiny, which is a horrible idea and part of our history, was actually contested during the time. The Whig Party did not agree with the idea of Manifest Destiny. They said it was wrong because it was declaring a right to conquer, which was unjustified. And when you compare that to something like Thomas Friedman said about, we can just go to Iraq, it's
right.
A semi sort of Manifest Destiny idea, that's even horrible, compared to the past, even though they like to say that, people in the past had different moral values, we can't really judge them, but they haven't really grown from the past at all.
No.
I mean, in some ways.
Good. It's a good point. Appreciate the call.
Great.
Thanks.
Yep. Love the show. Bye.
Calling from a 512 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 512. 512.
We hear you.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Rob. I'm calling from Austin.
Rob from Austin. What's on your mind, Rob?
Hey, just normally a big fan of the show. Last week, I had a lot of issues with what was going on. It was really it's hard to listen to. Emma and Brad, it's hard to put into words. I wear headphones normally when I'm listening to your show. Like I said, big fan. The insistence of the Matt Taibbi impressions is really concerning, and it's really like taking a toll on me, honestly.
I'm so sorry to do that to you.
I keep on hearing these.
Are they ear pods?
Yes.
All right. Well, I would recommend wearing headphones.
I cannot stress this enough to you. It's the noise, the noise in my ears. It's really difficult. I mean, can you please talk with them about that?
I will.
Thank you.
We do that every Wednesday.
Sorry, Rob.
Oh.
Were you guys doing a lot of Matt Taibbi impressions?
Obviously.
Rob, I'm really sorry.
It's like I was able to read the Taibbi and Musk texts.
Oh, I don't even know if I knew about that.
Did you not know?
Wait, who released the texts?
I posted Matt's assassination coordinates.
Wait, who posted the text?
Musk posted him and Taibbi's DMs on
Private
Signal,
messages,
and
yeah.
then deleted them. But someone got a screenshot, and it basically was Elon being like, "I didn't know you worked for Substack.
Yeah.
You're an employee there."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a false.
What? What? Wait, what? He didn't know that he worked for Substack? Who do you think he worked for?
Well,
that was the crazy thing, is like
Yes.
he tweeted about something, taking issue with how Taibbi was framing leaving Twitter for Substack or Substack Notes or whatever. Apparently he also is now on True Social. But Elon was like, I've just found out he was an employee at Substack.
No, Sam's missing this full context.
Yeah.
Like
I go away for a week. And
Yes.
it's just like everything.
Yeah, sorry.
Elon-
Go from the beginning.
Elon got into a feud with the Substack creator because he saw that Substack was doing this thing called
That I
Notes,
heard about.
okay?
I heard about that.
So then he starts
And then
restricting...
I saw an interview, I think before I left, with the head of Substack, who was like, "Well, we may, I'm not going to say that we're going to get rid of racism. It's really, we're going to play it by ear."
It was, and so he gets into this public feud with Taibbi and gave him an ultimatum. I mean, this is what happens in fiery, passionate relationships. Gave him an ultimatum saying it's either him or me. And Taibbi said, I'm going to stick with Substack because that's where I make money. And I posted the Twitter files on here for free. Musk started reducing the ability for people to interact with the Twitter files tweets, and then also posted their private messages online, which kind of put to rest the fact that was his source, and also showed that Taibbi, according to him in their private messages, did get paid early on to grow Substack before his subscriber base is the one that pays him, which was the one interesting part there too.
Oh, of course.
And I mean, but that's the kind of the thing that we'd kind of discuss, like behind the scenes. Are some of these billionaire funded new media projects funding some of their high profile IDW
Of course.
adjacent?
That happened with Callin.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think
Happened
Rumble
with all those platforms.
might be
Of
doing
course,
that.
they offered people to come onto those platforms first. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But now we had confirmation on that, I guess.
Yeah. Of course they did. Why do you think Glenn Greenwald talked about how fantastic it was? I'm sure that was like, if it wasn't explicitly part of the deal, we're going to pay you for your Substack thing to come here. And we expect, X number of tweets over the next 6 months or whatever it is. If it wasn't explicitly there, it's just his way of basically showing, hire me for the next gig, and this is what you get. This is part of the sales pitch. I mean, it was the exact same deal, except for it wasn't exact same deal as like when we did the show for Peacock, the second show.
Yeah.
Except for we just did it. It was transparent.
Because it's MSNBC, so Maddow's on that platform.
I don't think she was on the Peacock platform at the time.
Well, it's the same thing, Sam.
Me about misinformation.
Oh, God. I'm starting to side with the caller. Call from an 805 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Catfish James from Portland.
It's who from Portland?
Catfish James.
Catfish James from Portland, Oregon?
Portland, Oregon. Yes, sir.
Okay. What's on your mind, Catfish?
Just something I've been seeing a lot out here. I had to work in the office last week, and I heard people talking about. Are you aware of the Greater Idaho movement at all?
Oh God, no! But it doesn't sound fun. What is it?
Well, as a longtime resident of Oregon, I mean, I grew up here. Anybody that's been out to Eastern Oregon has seen the state of Jefferson flags. It's a movement that, for a long time, was trying to get Eastern and Oregon and Washington to secede from Oregon and Washington due to politics. Ironically enough, if you look up, at least in my area, your YouTube videos, there has been paid advertisement in front of your videos for the Greater Idaho movement, essentially counties in Eastern Oregon wanting to secede to Idaho. Wasn't sure if it's anything that you've heard of or anything. I didn't have much in the way of an argument to make while I was working in the office. I only kind of heard some of this in passing. So I wasn't really trying to argue with anybody while working, but I did look at their website to kind of just see what their main takeaways are. It's very reactionary. They mention guys in women's bathrooms is one of the points that they make. Homelessness, taxes, this and that. But I just thought it was something interesting to maybe think if you've heard of anything. Or
I haven't, but I mean, to be honest, I can imagine. I can only imagine what that's about. But no, we don't. With YouTube, we have no idea what the advertising are. I would imagine that's like, we're going to advertise on political shows. But let me actively say, nut jobs, just based upon what you've told me. So appreciate the call.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Thanks. All right. So what should we do? Should we do Gutfeld or should we do the...
All right, let's do Gutfeld. Okay.
Here is Greg Gutfeld on this is the 5.
The 5, yeah.
On with Janine Pirro, and they are they're reacting, I guess, to somebody who had said, looking for people to be less critical of drug workers online in New York State. I can just tell you that the cannabis industry in New York State is a huge industry. Helps farms, starting to see retail outlets open up there. I think New York is probably one of the best states in terms of the way they've approached legalization. There's been some hiccups. There was a lawsuit that was inhibiting the opening of some dispensaries. But it is hard for old people like me and Greg Gutfeld, particularly guys like Greg Gutfeld, to sort of get used to the notion of something that was illegal for our entire lives is now legal.
Yeah.
Even though I, was engaging in that substance in high school, which is, basically longer than I've been engaging in just about anything at this point. But I don't know if he did. I'm sure he did. Probably things that are still illicit, if you have to ask me, although I don't know. But
I would guess that some of the people at Fox News have tried cocaine before. Just a guess.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody has. Here's Greg Gutfeld.
The new migrants, we don't call them.
I don't know. I don't think it's as glamorous. I mean, do you go to a car worker instead of a car dealer? When you go to a casino, they're called dealers, not workers.
They're called sex workers. Not sex sellers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, I think you should target the cartels while you negotiate with them. And I also think you got to legalize drugs. I mean, the only way you're going to have quality control, like prescriptions, and the only way you're going to stop fentanyl poisonings would be to legalize these drugs, which people want. The problem isn't with the dealers. The problem is with us, right? We're the demand. They're just the supplier. You know what? You want to know who the drug dealers are? Snoop Dogg was a drug dealer. Jesse. Jay-Z was a drug dealer. 50 Cent was a drug dealer. Mark Wahlberg was a drug dealer. Tim Allen. And you know who opened this segment?
Who?
Kid Rock was a drug dealer. Wow. So I'm telling you, there's a lot of hypocrisy. This is an artificial stance.
Okay.
There's a lot of hypocrisy from Republicans. What do they love and preach to everybody? Capitalism. What do they hate? Regulating it. What is the drug market? Unregulated capitalism. A lot for the first rung onto that ladder of capitalism often is drug dealing for blacks.
Well,
how dare you?
They legalized drugs in Portland, essentially, and everyone's dying and sleeping on the streets. Do you agree that we should legalize drugs, Judge Janine?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think my answer is to that? Absolutely not.
Okay.
We can't legalize it. And look, here's the thing.
The drug war is working great.
Well, no, because we're not doing everything we need to be doing.
Arrest more people?
No.
Because they're seeking oblivion?
No, what we need to do is we need to close the border where 90% of the heroin and pretty much all the fentanyl comes through. We need to make sure that...
All right. First of all, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop in that accidentally based take by Greg Gutfeld.
Yeah, but he did say it was an artificial. He was just going. He was the one to bring up the talking points that day.
Sure. We
kind
know.
Of fascinating. It was like an almost like anti-capitalist.
We know, yeah. Well, but like he's smirking, so it's hard for me to tell. But like, these drugs are not coming over the border in the same quantities that they are describing. They're mostly coming through ports of entry, and fentanyl in particular is so easily smuggled because it's such a small finite amount that it's coming through the mail, it's coming through traditional ports of entry. It's not coming over the border in the same way that they're describing. But like, I do think that there are different tiers in terms of drug dealers and massive drug kingpins. Drugs and that marketplace is often a way for people to make money outside of the like incredibly low wage scales that are entry points for people to get into the economy. Drug dealing can be very lucrative, and we should also understand that, or not very lucrative, but a good way for people who are not making a lot of money, don't see a lot of economic opportunity to make some quick cash. And I think having empathy for that kind of person is the right way to go.
And also, do these people realize that they live in a city where marijuana is now legal? Like, there are at least 2 or 3 dispensaries that have already opened up in the city, and there's going to be more. I mean, it's like completely oblivious, pretending like, and they're afraid to leave the studio.
And
camping out there because it's so dangerous in Midtown.
Fentanyl is legal.
Right.
It's prescription. It's prescribed. That didn't curb the black market for it, which I feel like undercuts their point a little bit, but I don't know.
Look, Joe Biden wants to sanction and financially crippled. We heard this drug czar saying they're going to know that we're serious. Are you kidding? We need to designate them as foreign terrorists so that we can go after them the way we go after terrorists. We need to have military strikes. And I don't care if President Obrador in Mexico thinks we're rude or thinks it's an insult that we would consider doing this. The truth is that if you've got 100,000 people dying, we're in a damn war right now. And these kids are not dying because they want to take fentanyl. They're dying because they want to take maybe an Adderall, or maybe they want to take an oxycodone.
That's why you legalize
it. It's an undeclared war. No, that's not why you legalize
it. That's where you get the control of it. When
really?
Look, read about Prohibition. The reason why people died during Prohibition was because the alcohol wasn't controlled.
Okay.
Once you control pills, then you know it's an Adderall.
So
then you know it's a Xanax.
So that it's not lethal anymore?
Fentanyl is legal, by the way.
Lethal.
No,
lethal.
Yes, but it's also also legal.
I know it's legal. Doctors prescribe
It's also
it.
lethal on the street, but not
it's
lethal when it's prescribed.
Well, it's not lethal when it's prescribed. Yeah,
Yes,
I
that's
get
my
it. But
point.
here's the problem, is that the kids who don't want necessarily an illegal drug and only want something that's ordinary and that it's in everybody's medicine cabinet end up taking something
Because
like
it's not regulated.
Pause
Because they
it.
get
Pause
mixed.
it. First of all, people are not dying of overdose because they've been prescribed Adderall and somebody smuggled in fentanyl into their Adderall that they got from the pharmacy. What is she talking about?
I don't know.
That's implying like a pharmacist is like lacing Adderall with like a legal.
They're looking for their legal prescription drugs and people are lacing their prescription drugs?
I mean, yes, there are some people doing
Understand.
cocaine and it's laced with fentanyl, but that's
But they're not getting it from the pharmacy.
No.
I mean, that's the whole point. That it's unregulated. I mean, Gutfeld at least was told to be on the right side of this issue today, so that was fun.
I think he's trying to echo William F. Buckley. He's trying to be like a different kind of conservative.
And if there's anybody at that table who is aware that the so-called war on drugs has been waged now for 50 years, literally, and the 80s was the height of it, and not effective. Not effective. We know because it was not effective. Continue. Is that it? Is there anything left?
You're agreeing with me.
I'm not agreeing with you.
Yes,
No,
the reason why
it's
people look, I have had 2 friends die of overdoses from fentanyl.
We all
the
have
sa-
had
for the
friends
same
who
reason
died.
you're talking about.
We all
And
had
they
friends
were
who died.
taking it.
Yeah.
If it was
okay.
legal, that wouldn't have happened.
And you know what? But the truth is that people would follow. But the truth is that people are dying of these overdoses because they don't think that there's fentanyl in it, or they don't know that there's that much.
I will rest my case. That's what I said.
You heard
Yes,
about this
Jesse.
new drug.
Yeah. Yeah. She doesn't realize that she's making the same argument that Gutfeld is, but they'll get a whole segment out of it.
Yeah.
Now, Cucker Tarleton says there's counterfeit Adderall on the street composed of methamphetamine and laced with fentanyl. I have no doubt about that. But people are still taking prescription drugs, non-prescription. They're buying it on the street.
Yeah. But that's the point, right? The point is that there's no oversight into what people are taking when they take illicit drugs, and it can be laced with anything else.
All right. Final call of the day. Calling from a 713 area code. You are the final caller on the program today. Who's this?
Hey, this is Matt Taibbi. I heard
God.
people were sick of impressions, so I thought you'd get the real thing.
You sound like kind of like George W. Bush a little bit.
Well, it's extra painful to be me today. Sam, I want to know why you won't let me call into the show.
Dude, you're calling into the show.
Oh, well, that's an error, but I stand by my story.
I appreciate
I'm
the call.
not owned. Thank you. Bye. Oh.
Jesus. What has been going on? What has been going on in my absence? Absolutely insane.
We're being haunted.
All right. That is the final call of the day for sure. Read a couple IMs and we'll get out of here. Adam from Iowa. No, Adam from Miami. Iowa's being used as testing ground. A lot more being done than just food stamps during COVID. I got $200 a month in food assistance since I was doing work study in school. WS made up automatically eligible. Not sure what that means. New SNAP rules hurt everyone. Hello, Smushy. Hey, who's this nerd on my screen? Bring back Emma. Samantha Cider account. Welcome back, Sam. Hope you're feeling refreshed after some time off. Emma and Bradley did an awesome job holding it down. Boomer from Afghanistan. Who the hell is this new guy? Never thought I'd say it, but Greg Gutfeld is right. Militant apathy. Did you mind the gap? Arguably, Ginsburg's ego cost women more than all of her work throughout her life. Tells me that right-wingers see her as an ally, or they just want the Senate to be unable to appoint judges. I think it's the latter in terms of Feinstein. Train boy. Why can't Californians recall Feinstein like they tried to do to Newsom? It's a good question, actually, but you need to have basically a massive billionaire fund it.
Can they do recall for senators?
I don't know. Probably not, actually, for a federal position. Now that
I think it's for state because I remember it's governors and like state reps.
Those laws are so Byzantine anyway. It's ridiculous.
Train boy, as an Italian woman, Cleopatra was in fact black. I think she was Greek, but who knows?
Yeah.
Andrew Work. Shapiro's favorite movie is Soul Man, starring C. Thomas Howell. Yeah. Do you guys remember that? Torque. The disingenuous posturing of various Dems that Dianne Feinstein's only issue is recovering from shingles. Saw Jennifer Paul Mieri on Andrea Mitchell's show last week. The two of them strongly implied that the calls for Feinstein to resign were moved by progressives to let Gavin Newsom appoint Barbara Lee to Feinstein's seat to give her a leg up in the primary. Could there be a battle between progressives and neoliberal wing of the party behind the scenes? I mean, it's conceivable, I guess. Certainly, I'd imagine Newsom would feel some pressure because he's out there trying to sort of like fill some progressive lane. But
like,
that's just
yes,
ridiculous.
I think there's something happening there, but at the same time, like that needs to be put aside. And also, Biden and Newsom, stop pigeonholing yourself by saying that you're going to nominate a black woman. Just nominate a black woman. Just do it. It's like it looks. It's not even good politics. Just do it, and then that's amazing.
Yeah. I think the reality is that Jennifer Paul Mieri, probably more than Andrea Mitchell, but probably to some extent, they are making the calls for Feinstein's resignation about that race. They may be right in their assessment as to who Newsom would pick, or they may be wrong. But the reason why they don't want Feinstein to resign, despite the fact that she clearly needs to, it's sort of, I think, what do they call it? The iron law of institutions. They would rather maintain their power within an institution that is losing power than to lose power and build the strength of the institution. That's what's going on there. Because Paul Mieri is of that wing. Hugo's Burger. Welcome back, Sand. I find it kind of odd that you and David Pakman both decided to vacation to Europe at the same time. I also find it kind of odd that we've never seen the both of you in the same room together. But in all seriousness, I know David has stolen quite a few things from you. Your set, your haircut, having a kid. And now he's stolen your vacation from you. Well, yeah, I agree with you. Hugo's Burgers. We must stop David Pakman at all costs. I'll send you further instructions. Thanks for the IM. Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. Vatov, welcome back to the Emma Majority Report, Sam. As someone who has 4 economic degrees, can't tell you how much I appreciate these type of interviews and books. It's basic economics that often get taught without the ideology associated with it. By taking the neoliberal economic theory as an unquestionable principle is more like nature or physics, indeed. Senator Rick Scott. Holy shit, John Erickson had him in junior year of college. Great professor and great guy. Lulu resign. Lula's resign. No, Lula's reign. Okay, now I get it. What did you all think about Lula's policy decision on dealing with the peace treaty route, which might be possible by China and Russia alliance? Do you think he's short-sighted, or does he actually have a valid point about U.S. being the power player wanting continued war in Ukraine? There is no doubt in my mind that there are elements of the U.S. foreign policy apparatus that are opportunistically using this as an opportunity to sell more weapons, test more weapons, to get a better sense of what Russian power is. I mean, what's amazing is, from those leaks, is how much the U.S. seems to have infiltrated
Russian intelligence.
The Russian intelligence again, and like one can imagine, sort of where they're positioned. At the same time, what's also fascinating is that you learn that even if you have individuals who are feeding you a tremendous amount of intel from Russia. The Russian system was such that nobody really had a genuine assessment of their power.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a lot of like delusion happening in the country. Do I think it would be good for Russia and China, for China to forge some type of peace? Yes, I think anybody trying to forge peace there is good. If China can get Russia to withdraw and stop invading the country, I think that's a good thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing for people to encourage that to happen. But I mean, that's ultimately what's got to happen.
China was successful in right now. Saudi Arabia, the Omani representatives and the Houthi coalition are in talks to put a permanent ceasefire in place in Yemen, and that was preceded by China getting Iran and Saudi Arabia to the table for the first time since this had begun. So like that speaks to some positive developments there in terms of them trying to like open up diplomatic avenues as a part of like them flexing their muscle as a power in the world. Is it in their interest to do so? Sure. But from Lula's perspective, like I don't see anything problematic about that. I don't.
All right. 5 more of these. Kowalski from Nebraska. I like this conversation. Readjusting the agricultural system to where we waste less and can utilize more land for habitat protection and carbon sequestering would be phenomenal. And it doesn't even have to have any negative economic repercussions if we as a society choose to make that a valuable option. Indeed, Union Strong. Always glad to see you guys host Labor Voices. Thanks for the show and all you do. Cheers from a union pipe fitter. Joe Egg. My cedar seeds arrived today. Left his best. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna shoot some videos. Like I've been planting some seeds to grow more seeds.
You need to do like a time lapse of it growing.
Yep.
Set up a camera.
Head to cedarseeds.com, folks. Get your seeds. Still time to get those things dunked in some water and planted. The turnaround time on the shipping, very, very quick. Sam's greased up calves. At least Ben Shapiro said, I'm a dude and I have testicles. I guess he knows one does not imply the other now.
Mm-hmm.
What an ally Ben has become. Indeed. There you go. Eddie Munster. Sam, welcome back. Emma and Bradley did a hell of a job running the show last week. You should take more extended vacations. I will work on that. Actually, this year is going to be the most vacations I've ever taken in my entire life. Or not in my entire life. Really in the past 18 years, because trying to spend a little more time with Mila before she goes away for school. Stony. Emma, great job all week. The Hassan collab to end the week was great. Also happy to have you back, Sam. And the final I am of the day. Chicago letter carrier. USPS has a 2-tier chart for craft employee. Oh, shoot. I already did that one. All right. One more. Dan the Birdman. I don't think they had any brown marble to make statues from. 11 of 15 counties have voted for the greater Idaho and Eastern Oregon. Oh, geez.
Wow.
Folks. Oh, happy early birthday, Emma.
Thank you. I'm entering my
charge.
last year of my 20s.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's your final year.
I'm turning 29. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
It's just a fact.
It's so dramatic. Oh, God, it's all ahead of you. Emma's off tomorrow celebrating her birthday. Going to do a little day drinking. And I'm joking.
No,
not really.
Maybe.
Maybe. Bradley and I will be back tomorrow. Great job today, Bradley. Emma, great job all last week, guys. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out station where you don't get paid for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. The months drifted into years while I shifted in and